Diersen, CHI Global Artist and Farouk Systems Educator. Welcome to our CHI Academy Online. This is webinar episode 2, where we're going to be covering the characteristics of hair. So welcome everyone. I'm so excited to have you, and let's just get started. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about the characteristics of hair. Our hair is composed of 3 different layers. We have the cuticle, we have the cortex, and we have our medulla. The cuticle is actually a translucent protective layer that is found on the outer surface of the hair. This is kind of scaly, a little bit, it opens and shuts with the pH changes, and this is going to be where a lot of our shine is reflected off of. This is also going to be what is going to protect our hair color from staying or leaving the hair. So the more the pH raises on the hair, then the more that cuticle opens. Now let's move on to the cortex of the hair. The cortex is actually found more in the middle of the hair, and it's going to be what the hair is mostly made up of. So what I mean by that is it really is more like the backbone of the hair. The cortex is actually going to be where most of the color lives. This is actually going to be where more of the hair structure is found. And after the cortex, past the cortex, really deep into the hair structure, we're going to find, sometimes but not all of the time, we will find a medulla. Now, the medulla doesn't really have a known reason to exist, but you will probably find a medulla mostly on coarse to medium textured hair and not commonly found in fine hair. All right. So right now, if you guys have any questions about our structure of the hair when it has to be with the cuticle or the cortex or the medulla, raise your hand. This is totally interactive, and I welcome all of your questions as we go along on this episode. Do you guys have any questions? No questions? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the key characteristics of hair. The key characteristics of hair are going to be texture, density, porosity, elasticity, formation, and of course, color. Let's go ahead and review the texture of the hair. Now, the texture of the hair is composed with, we're really going to define it more from like fine, medium to coarse. Fine hair is going to be more like my models. As you can see, she actually does have more fine hair. Coarse hair is going to be the largest in diameter. And then medium hair is really going to be more your ideal texture to work with. Coarse hair is actually going to be less hairs per square inch than, let's say, medium or fine texture. I do have a visual to help you guys understand if you let me. I'm going to reach over and grab these 3 straws. Now, each of these straws, let's just say, are going to be representing each of our textures. This straw, which is nice and wide, is going to be representing the coarse texture. This blue straw is going to be representing the medium texture. And then this coffee stir is going to represent our fine texture. Let's talk about density now that we're talking about the different diameters of hair. Now, it's really easy to see that more of the fine straws are going to fit per square inch on the head. That is a representation of fine hair right here. So if you can tell that I can fit more of these straws on the head per square inch, then that means that I probably will have more fine hairs on someone that has fine hairs on someone with fine head of hair. I know that's a little repetitive, but I'm trying to explain to you guys that coarse hair or medium hair is going to have less hairs per square inches on the head. So someone that has coarse hair might look or appear to have more hair because it's very thick and lots of body in the hair, but that does not necessarily mean that they have more hair than someone with fine hair. And it's really easy to see because if I grab several of my fine hair straws, I can actually fit multiple straws in what is the coarse hair straw representing the coarse hair. I fit up to 5 straws in one straw representing coarse hair. Okay, so that's just a little visual. Hopefully you guys understand what I was trying to show you with that. Okay, any questions on the texture and the density of hair before we move on? All right, you guys remember, this is all interactive. I am here for you. We are, you guys are watching us completely live. So it is really, I encourage you guys to ask me as many things as you want, and just raise your hand or comment so that way we know that we can answer your questions, okay? All right, now let's talk about porosity. Now, porosity is very important. Porosity is the ability for the hair to absorb and retain moisture. And this is very important because when the hair absorbs moisture and then releases the moisture, that just means that the hair is extremely porous. It's very high in porosity, which is hydrophilic, and it's going to release color faster. It's going to absorb it, but it's also going to release it. Okay, so it's really important that you do that analysis, and I'll show you in just a moment what the hair analysis for porosity check is going to be like. It's very easy. Now, if the hair is hydrophobic, that means that the hair is actually retaining that water. It's actually drinking it in and absorbing it, and it's keeping it, and that hair is probably healthier. That cuticle has not been compromised, and it's probably going to be found in lower levels of the hair. So higher the level, probably the most porous the hair is going to be, especially if it's an artificial blonde. Okay, so let's do a porosity test. This is a very simple and effective way to do a porosity test, and I'm going to show you on my model Priscilla how to do it. We're going to do it in 3 different areas on the head. First, we're going to do it right around the hairline. And this is important because the hairline is actually going to be the most exposed to the environment, the most exposed to chemical heats, and most of the time, that's where you mostly find your highlights, like accent pieces. It's around the face. So it's probably going to be the driest part of the head. So we're going to test here. We're going to take about an inch section here. And this is how we're going to do this, okay? I'm going to hold the strand out just like this. And what I'm looking for is movement in the hair. I'm going to pinch the hair and I'm going to push the hair back towards the head. All right, just like that. You see how that hair moved just a little bit? Okay, so that really indicates how porous or non-porous the hair is. The more the shift towards the head, the higher the porosity. The less the movement, the lower the porosity. So again, ask any questions. I'm going to do this one more time to demonstrate, and I'm going to do it in 3 zones on the head. I'm going to pinch here, and I'm going to push the hair back. I'm not surprised that around the face, it's a little bit more porous. Now I'm going to move on to the crown. Now around the crown, their hair is going to be less porous because most of the time, her hair is protected from everything else on the surface. So this does not get a lot of activity, or it does not get a lot of heat or sun exposure. It's not going to be as porous, and you'll notice that it doesn't move as much. Do you see that? The front of the head moved more, therefore it's more porous. As I shift further back into the head, it's not going to, but also notice there's less highlights here, so it's going to be less porous. Okay, that's the second strand. And now for my last piece, it's going to be right here at the nape. And this is the healthiest, most protective area on the head. This is also the area where it's going to be the most resistant. And I'm going to do the same thing. Shift it a little bit, but not as much as here at the crown, and definitely not as much as here at the temples. All right. Let's move on to elasticity. This is extremely important, and it's very, very important to remember that the elasticity of the hair is what is going to also keep the hair from breaking. We want to protect the elasticity of the hair because this is the ability of the hair to stretch and retract or come back to its natural form without breaking. I do have a demonstration to make it a little bit easier of a visual with this simple rubber band. So on the hair, it's really easy to take a strand, but it's not easy to demonstrate on the camera for you to see the shift. But when the hair is dry, it's a really good time to do your elasticity test because you can really see the hair stretch and come back to normal. But when it's wet, it's actually already stretched up to 50% more than what the natural elasticity is of the hair. But when I take this rubber band, basically what you're looking for, this is like an amplified version of it. You're just looking for the hair to do this and then come back to normal without breaking. If you see the hair actually stretch and not come back, then the elasticity is compromised. That means that the hair at any point could break. Even just rubbing around your shoulders could break the hair if the elasticity is compromised. Any questions on porosity or elasticity, guys? No? Okay, well then let's move on to formation. Formation of the hair is basically what the hair's shape is. Is it curly? Is it straight? Is it wavy? Is it extra curly? So on Priscilla here, we actually have wavy to curly hair. The way that you can really practice feeling, not just seeing, because as you can see right now her hair is smooth, but we did that because we prepped it for the application we have coming up. But your guest comes in and she has her hair already smoothed out and you think or assume that her hair is straight, and then you start to design your work and find out that her hair is not naturally straight, then you're kind of in a bind. So a way that you can actually feel the hair or the formation of the hair, you can always spray it down and really scrunch it to see how much of that texture reflects back at you naturally. Or you can also feel the natural texture of the hair by putting it between your fingers. If the hair is naturally straight, the hair will roll in between your fingers when you move them back and forth. And that's because the formation of straight hair is a round shape. So it's going to roll between your fingers and glide very easily. Now when you go in and you feel the wavy hair actually has an oval or flattened sides that is going to roll between your fingers, but it's also going to create this kind of a jump. You're going to feel it roll, but you're going to feel a little bit of a jump between the rolls. And then curly hair is it's much flatter. You're going to not feel it roll at all. And that's your perfect indicator whenever you're trying to feel for the formation of the hair between your fingers. Okay, so let's talk about color. When you do the influencing factors, and all of the things that we just covered are all influencing factors that you need to consider when you're working on someone in the salon or at school behind the chair. Is very important to cover the influencing factors, but also to talk about the 4 easy steps. And let me just discuss those. Those are really, really easy to remember. It's first of all, you have to analyze or decide what it is that your starting level and tone is. So on Priscilla here, I have level 7, and then I have highlighted hair, mids to ends, and they're at a level 9. So you do need to consider every single area on the head. And then you have to determine what your target level is going to be. That's step number 2. Am I going lighter? Am I going darker? And then the tone, that's step number 3. What is your target tone? Step number 3, you're going to decide whether you're going to do a golden tonality, you're going to do a red or a warm tonality, is it going to be a cool tonality? Because you've already decided if you're going to go higher on the level or lower on the level. And then last but not least is going to be step number 4, which is going to be deciding what volume your developer is going to be. In this case, we're actually going to be doing a balayage highlight on Priscilla, and I'm going to be using our CHI Infra High Lift cream lightener that it's going to lift, and it's also going to add deposit of color to her hair. And I'm going to be mixing this equal parts with my CHI 20 volume color generator, and it's going to give me a nice, beautiful, creamy consistency. I'll be able to apply this on the hair beautifully, and it's all ammonia free, so I'll be able to get lift and tone all at the same time. And this is in the GB, that's Golden Blonde series. All right, Things to consider also when we do the influencing factors, or before we go right into doing the hair, you do have to consider other things. Like, for example, do they have any allergies? Do they have previous color history? Do they use prescription medication, or are heavy smokers? Because all of these things are going to also influence the results of your work. Now, for example, tobacco is going to leave nicotine residue, which is already on the hair, and you cannot remove that. So you need to make sure that you know how to work with that, because you cannot remove that. You can remove pigments, but you cannot remove the nicotine from the hair. Henna is very important to consider, because henna actually has metallic properties in there that can heat up when you expose them to a different chemical. Previous chemical history, including perms, relaxers, straighteners, over-the-counter hair dyes, are all necessary to know before you formulate all of your 4 easy steps. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and see if you guys have any more questions before I get started on my application. Questions on color and formation? We have one question. Okay. The products on the hair affect the porosity test that we demonstrated? That is an excellent question, and I'm so glad that you brought that up, because yes, absolutely 100% it will affect the test. It's really important. If you can't get quite a good read on the hair, you do want to ask questions like, what did you do to your hair this morning? Did you put anything in it? When was the last time that you shampooed it? And if you really truly want to get a good read, you might want to shampoo the hair before you start applying anything to the hair or doing your porosity test, because you just want to sometimes get a nice shampoo through the hair and blow dry it, and that way you can really get a good read. We have another question.
Okay, what product will Cynthia use and why?
Can you repeat the question, please?
What product will you use and why?
What product will I use today and why? Okay, so what I'm going to be using today is my CHI Infra High Lift Golden Blonde. That is a lightener that also has the ability to deposit pigments into the hair, or tonality into the hair. And I'm going to be using it with CHI Color Generator 20 volume. The reason why I chose this is because, well, first of all, I can do multiple things at once. I can actually do lift and tone all at the same time. I don't need to use more than 20 volume on her hair, because Priscilla is already a level 7, and I just want to get a little bit of lift, not too much. But I also love this product because it's really good. The spreadability is beautiful. It also allows me to do beautiful balayaging. And you know what? If I were doing color, I could also apply this right over my CHI Ionic Permanent Shine color, or my CHI Shine Shades color, right over it, and do a smudging technique, and it'll be absolutely beautiful and flawless. Thank you so much for that question. Any more questions before we move on? All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start my application, since we have no more questions on any of that. And I'll show you how this viscosity is. Look how creamy that is. And you can see it already is very, very creamy. And I haven't even applied my CHI Color Generator. And this is our Golden Blonde. So it has a yellow color to it. And now I'm going to mix it with my CHI Color Generator 20 volume. And I do have measurements over here on my bowl, so I know that I'm mixing it equal parts. And let's see. I'm going to use my whisk, make sure that I get everything nice and evenly incorporated. And now you can see, you see those peaks that I get? That is perfect consistency for balayage. It's going to stay really nice and moist when I apply it on the hair. And I am going to put on some gloves for this application. And it's going to be really, really easy. These techniques are going to be very easy to replicate. So let's see. And now I'm just going to take a very simple sectioning pattern. I'm going to start right here at the middle of Priscilla's eyebrows, and I'm going to go over to the apex. And I'm going to create a triangle. This side, and then Priscilla, there you go. I'm going to meet that point at the apex. The apex is actually the highest point on the head. And the reason why I'm stopping there is because I want to get a little bit of blend. When the hair falls over, I'm going to get a nice, beautiful shadow on the surface of the hair and more brightness around her face. So this is the sectioning pattern that I'm going to use. I just want to do this so that you guys can see it easier. Really easy. Priscilla, if you can just tilt your head forward, you can see it's a triangle right there. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start my application in diagonal back sections. I'm going to take a section here, and I'm going to pull this forward, just like that. I'm going to skip this front one because I'm going to come back to it. Remember, our influencing factors are everything, you guys. So the reason why I chose to skip that section is because that is the most porous on her hair. So I want that to be the last piece that gets applied on her head, okay? Now this is a diagonal, slightly diagonal back section right in here. And the reason why I know that's a diagonal back is just because if I were to put an imaginary marble right here, that marble is going to roll back into the back of her head. So I know that my line is truly diagonal back. Now I'm going to grab my section. And I'm going to take, this is a little trick I want to show you guys, okay? When you have a smaller or flyaway hair, you can take something like CHI Infra Texture. This is so light, so light. So it's really not going to affect any of my work that gets done, but I'm just wanting to put things, all of the hair together, so I get a nice, clean application of color. And I'm just going to take a little bit, just like this. You see that? Okay, here we go. So I'm going to ask Priscilla to tilt her head like this, and I'm going to start here at the mids, and I'm going to start dropping in my color, or my CHI Infra High Lift Golden Blonde, that's GB, and I'm going to start to apply. I'm going to tilt you this way, Priscilla. And I'm going to apply most of my liner to the mids of her hair, and then I'm going to start to work my way up. Now, if you don't want to see any spots, make sure that you don't leave any spots in your application. Okay? Just like that, and then you can work a little bit up, just like this. I did not apply anything to the underneath. I'm just creating a little bit of brightness around her face. And I do keep a towel handy so that I can keep my hands clean. Now I'm going to go to the next section. And I'm just going to do a few pieces right around her hair. Right around her hairline, I should say. Still diagonal back. And remember, if you have some of these flyaways, you can always use a little bit of CHI Infra Texture because it's nice and light and workable, and it's not going to interfere with the color at all. And get some of these pieces to stick together and help each other out. And now I'm going to apply, again, middle of the hair and work my way up. Now I'm holding this section pretty nice and taut, so that way I can get like almost like a board in my section, and I can apply nice and smooth and even, and none of the hair moves around on me. So I have total control of my section here. And then I brush up, and this is balayage. Balayage is a sweeping motion. I have my section here, and I'm just going to go through the ends of the hair. And I'll pull it back, just like so. All right. Now, I do want to mention that cheek keratin mist, I'm going to apply this here. Cheek keratin mist, and I know I just applied this over this, but it's really not a big deal because this is keratin, and keratin is going to actually help strengthen the hair, but cheek keratin mist is also helping me balance the porosity of the hair. So right around here, around her face, where it's most porous, I'm applying a little bit of cheek keratin mist. I did spray her hair before we started the video, but I do want to remind you guys, cheek keratin mist is ideal for color melt, for evening out the porosity of the hair. You can use it for also prepping the hair for haircuts and things like that. It's really, really great. Okay, so now I'm going to be working on the top of her hair. I'll come back to this section in just a moment, but I'm going to go ahead and divide this in half, right down the middle, all the way to that point on my triangle, which is right at the apex, highest point on the head. And again, this is the most porous part of the hair, so I'm going to spray it, cheek keratin mist, to balance out the porosity of the hair. Notice I don't have any foils down here. Everything is laying down nice and neat. And then over here, keep it divided. Okay, and I'm going to work, oh, one second. Where are you going, Priscilla? Right there. Is that good? All right, can you guys see everything? All right. So now I'm still working in diagonal back sections. This section here, right at the hairline, you see that? I'm going to take a little bit of a stitch right in here, just for a little bit more blend. I'm going to select this. And remember, I have help from my CHI Infra texture to make all of the hair come together. And then I can color this really evenly. I select my hair and I grab it and I do a little bit of a twist. Did you see that motion? I'm going to grab it right here. I'm going to twist a little bit so I can get a little extra tightness from my section. And those little hairs right in here don't want to stick. That's okay. I got it. There we go. All right, so here we go. Let's paint. I'm going to paint right in here, these tiny hairs, right at the fringe. And now I'm going to start to connect. What's going to happen is, because my first sections on the side are diagonal back, Priscilla, if you can shift your head just that way a little bit, you see that line is going to start to connect with the lines in the back. So that's what you want. You want to make sure that everything makes sense, everything is on purpose. And we are wanting to add some brightness around her face. Just like this. Do you guys have any questions about what I'm doing at the moment? Yes? Just like that.
Do you use anything different if someone is a smoker as far as formulation or timing?
So you have to, the question is, do you use anything different if you're a smoker in formulation or in timing? First of all, if they're a smoker, you just have to consider that, you know, you don't have to do a huge change in your formulations because a lot of people smoke and it's okay. But the thing that you just need to consider and you need to keep in mind is that nicotine is going to stain the hair. It's going to grow out of the hair, kind of yellow, orange. So if someone wants to be a platinum blonde, you most likely are going to struggle a lot with fighting that nicotine stain. So if they want to do that, you can formulate it, but know that you're going to run into that yellow-orange phase that is not going to go away. You cannot remove it from the hair. It is what it is. You can use glazes that are going to reduce some of that, but it is your job to communicate with your guest that you can do as much as possible, but the nicotine in the hair stain is it's there to stay. So I would formulate things in the cooler side, like we can use CHI Blondest Blonde because it has a cooler base and an aquamarine base. And then also you can use our CHI Ionic Permanent Shine cream color, or also our shine shades to do tone outs or glazes to counteract that. In beiges or silvers, ashes as well. The other one that you can use is our CHI Infra High Lift has other family members, and they come in a cool blonde and they also come in a beige blonde. So those are colors that you can always, or lighteners that you can always count on to help you lift people's hair that have nicotine in it and counteract the nicotine stain. Thank you so much for your question. Okay, I'm going to take another section, diagonal back, just like this. And I'm going to spray, because the reason why I'm spraying with my CHI Infra texture is because Priscilla has flyaways, and I want to make sure that I control them while I'm applying. If I don't need to do that, if the hair does not have flyaways, then I don't need to spray it. This is the amount of color that I'm using, and notice that my brush stays clean. And it's important because if your brush stays messy, then you're going to have a messy application. So let's just start right here. And again, I take my section, I do a twist so that way I have nice tension on the hair, and I'm going to apply on the top and work my way down, and then work my way up, and then work my way down. So that way I have a nice, beautiful blend. And then I can clean my brush and brush up for blend, just like this. And then if I want more brightness at the ends, it's important to have some saturation. The brighter you want the ends to be, the more saturated the ends need to be. It's kind of a rule of thumb with balayage. And we just drop it. Clean our hands. And I'm just going to keep working my way all the way to the apex area, just like that. Now my sections, I'm going to start to skip a little further back, just like this. You notice I actually stayed closer together in the front, and now I'm going to skip a little further away from my last section. And I'm going to start my application here, just like this. Just like that. I use the back of my hand so I keep my hand nice and clean. And I can always flip my hand over, and I know that I'm not going to be contaminating or smudging anything that I don't need to be blonde. I'm still going to keep it nice and dark. So. Just like this. And then I move my section away from her face, just like this. Make sure that those ends are saturated, just like that. All right, we have another question.
Can nicotine be removed with a clarifying treatment?
So that's a great question. Nicotine, the question is, can nicotine be removed with a clarifying shampoo? Nicotine can not be removed from the hair. but it can help in the chemical process to do a clarifying treatment. Nicotine is there to stay. It's part of the hair. Okay, another section, just like this. Diagonal back. And I'm going to apply here, mids, and then bring it all the way up. Notice that when I go up, I actually fade it, and then it gets bold towards the ends. But I don't apply underneath the hair. Underneath my section, it's going to stay dry. And that's because I want to get that versatility in tones. And if I go in and apply at the bottom, I'm actually going to flood the whole entire hair with just bright blonde. And I want to have that dark and light versatility. Where you can apply on both sides is more towards the ends. So you have a nice, beautiful, bright blonde at the end, just like that. Are you guys having fun with this webinar? I hope you're enjoying it. And then this is actually going to be my last section on this side. And then I'm going to come back over around the hairline that I said I was going to come back to this area right here. And then I'm going to apply there.
We have a question.
Uh-huh.
When trying to pull 50 series out to go blonde, what extra steps do you recommend?
Okay, so let me just make sure that I get the question correctly. So you're trying to pull out our 50 series, our gray coverage series out of the hair, is that correct? And what extra steps we need to take in order to get it all out of the hair, is that correct? To go blonde. Okay, so one of my favorite go-to steps that is really easy to do is using our CHI Blondest Blonde with 20 volume or 30 volume and make that with a mixture of CHI Keratin shampoo, all equal parts. 1 part CHI Blondest Blonde, 1 part CHI Color Generator, 20 or 30 volume, and then 1 part of our CHI Keratin shampoo. And basically just apply it on the hair, wet or dry, and just massage the product in. And you're going to see, just watch the hair, and you're going to see that the leftover color is going to just pull right out of the hair. And it's going to be nice and conditioning because of the CHI Keratin shampoo. Also, the CHI Blondest Blonde has conditioning properties, and it's going to be all ammonia free, and it's going to be nice and gentle on the hair. And you're going to be able, I've even been able to remove a lot of levels from box hair dyes with that blend. So it's kind of my go-to blend. CHI Blondest Blonde, 20 or 30 volume, and CHI Keratin shampoo, all mixed together, equal parts, and put it on the hair. Thanks for that question. Okay, so I'm going to go back in over to my hairline right here. And this kind of application is so popular in the salon. It's amazing because it's really fast, and it's taking us a little bit longer here because we're doing a webinar. However, when you're in the salon and someone does not have a lot of time, or perhaps they didn't even schedule an appointment to get this done, it's very easy to sell them on a surface balayage technique or surface balayage service because it doesn't take very long. You have the product, the CHI Infra High Lift color or lightening line is going to give you a lift and deposit all at the same time. So you really don't have to go in and spend a lot of time toning things out. So you're going to be able to do more services in the same amount of time that you normally put in at work at the salon. Okay, so now I have my section right here around the hairline, and I'm just going to very, very gently brush this. You see that? I'm almost combing it with my brush, just like this. What I'm creating is just brightness around her face, but it's going to be very natural. So when she pulls her hair back, this is going to have a beautiful, beautiful blend. just like this. And then, and I did do a stitch or a weave in between. So I actually separated the hair behind the stitch or the weave, and I separated it back. And then the one that I'm actually coloring or lightening is the front one. Just like this. And then as I reach the mids, I'm actually going to concentrate my lightener even more. And notice that I am not even putting foils in the hair. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't put foils in the hair. This is just personal preference. You can if you want to. If it makes you feel more comfortable, go ahead and do a foliage. Foliage is going to be a balayage technique with foils to separate it, and you can even do baby lights in between if you'd like. All right.
How do you get it where it doesn't look blotchy underneath?
That's a great question. How do you get your balayage to not look splotchy or spotty? So if you notice, I don't have any blotchy spots to begin with. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that if there is one, you get it before it becomes a spot. I like to say if you don't want to see lines or spots, then don't put them in there in the first place, because then you're going to have to go back and do some correction. So you need to be more preventative than corrective. So make sure that your application, when you're doing the application, you just don't put it all in and not pay attention to those little things. Notice also that my brush is not messy. It's still clean, and that's very important when doing balayage, because if you have lightener all the way up on your brush, you lose control of your application, and then it becomes really messy, and then you get to drop some spots, and you might not even know that you put them there in the first place. So thank you for that question.
What's your thoughts on damp hair balayage?
Damp hair balayage is actually a really fast and easy way to do color. I do that in the salon myself. We actually do, we call it, balayage, like wet balayage in the salon. And it's a great service. I think it's really great whenever you just want to do a few of them in the front. She might have decided very last minute that she wanted a little bit more brightness around her face, and you can just go in and put some pieces in there. Again, CHI Blondest Blonde, CHI Infra High Lift are great products for that. Because they're going to give you that lift and tonality all at the same time. And you're going to be able to do this in no time at the shampoo bowl. Thank you for that. That's a great service as well.
And does the Infra dry out as quick as powder lightener? And if so, any suggestions on how to keep it from drying out?
Okay, so let me make sure that I heard the question correctly. So powder lightener versus cream lightener, which one dries faster? Does the Infra dry out faster? So Infra meaning this product that I'm using right now. Actually, the Infra actually does not dry out faster. It has oils. It has olive oils in it. And so it does not dry out faster. It actually stays really nice and moist throughout your entire application. It does not fluff up the way that other lighteners do. It actually stays nice and consistent because it's ammonia free and it has a consistent pH. Powder lighteners, we have powder lighteners. It's our CHI Blondest Blonde, and you can leave that bowl the entire day and it will not dry out. It will stay nice and moist. You might need to do a quick little, stir, but other than that, it stays nice and moist. And you can see that my lightener is still, I can still get those peaks from it. So it's nice and even and consistent. So the Infra High Lift, is it safe to use on any hair or just on natural hair? The Infra High Lift is actually very safe to use on any kind of hair. It could be chemically treated, it could be virgin hair. Honestly, just consider your influencing factors. This is what this class is about. Always refer to your influencing factors. Check that porosity, check the elasticity, all of those things to make sure that you're getting the right developer, because you don't want to overshoot the developer. And when I say overshoot, I mean grab something too high of a developer that you don't really need, because especially if the hair is porous, it's going to give you lift much easier and faster. So you don't need to go in and grab something like a 30 or a 40 volume. However, I love using the CHI Infra High Lifts in the red series or in the brown series when I have box dyes in the hair, because I'm able to go in and do beautiful color dimensions in one single step. Thank you for that question. Okay. So I'm going to be working the same exact manner on the other side. Remember, my section is a triangle, and I've reached the top of the triangle here. And the triangle was actually, let me just show you really fast. The triangle, just recapping here, was from the apex, which is the highest point on the head, and it went all the way down to the temples. And this was the width of my triangle. And then I created diagonal back sections on this side, diagonal back sections starting here at the temples, and diagonal backs, and then I started working on the surface of the hair with my CHI Infra High Lift GB and 20 volume CHI color generator, equal parts, to create nice, consistent and creamy application. All right, so I'm going to separate that. And what I did before, if you guys are just joining in, what I did before is I separated right here at the front hairline, and I left this for the very end because influencing factors are going to tell us when and when not to apply. So I'm going to apply this last because around the face here is where Priscilla's hair is the most fragile. It's going to be the most exposed to heat and color and the sun and all of the environment influencers. And so I'm going to come back to this section right in here to keep complete and total control of how this processes. And then my sections after that are going to be diagonal back, just like this. You can see that. And then I'm just going to do a couple of sections here to show you guys. And I'm using my CHI Infra texture. The reason why I'm using CHI Infra texture on this particular balayage is because Priscilla's hair has a little bit of flyaways, and I can control it with my CHI Infra texture without disrupting any of my chemical process throughout my balayage. Just a little bit so that I can get all these little hairs to stick together. And I'm going to grab a little bit of my lightener in my CHI Infra High Lift Golden Blonde. And just like before, I'm going to create a little bit of tension. And then I'm going to start my application just like this. And it's going to be a little bit heavier on the surface of the hair and on the mids of the hair, and not so much on the bottom. And if you notice, all of this stays dark because that's going to create my negative space. And I'm going to keep my sections nice and neat and clean, and that's going to help the process to not get any splotching, any lines. I'm going to flip this over to the back of my hand, and I'm going to color all the way down, all the way down. Now we are going to have to start wrapping this class up, and you can always go back to chi.com and view this webinar again. We would love for you guys to share this also, and that if you have any questions, you can always go back and see the webinar again, and hopefully you can have a lot of your questions answered. I'm going to be working in the same exact manner off camera to complete my entire application the same way that I applied on this side. I'm just going to mirror the whole entire application on her left side. So that being said, as we wrap this class up on the characteristics of hair, does anyone have any last questions?
If your model is a level 5, what would you use for color?
Okay, well that's a great question. If my model is a level 5, what would I use for color? So let's go back to really quick the 4 easy steps. I'm missing some information because if she wants to be, what level does she want to be? What tonality does she want to be? And if she's a level 5, does she have previously colored level 5 hair? Did she color it herself? Did she color it in the salon? What is the history behind it? So there are a lot of different influencers that could play a role in succeeding at the finished result or not succeeding. So make sure that whenever you have a question like that, get a little bit more information from your guest, ask them about any color that they have done in the past, when was the last time that they colored it, what was used in the hair, and if they've never done color and it's virgin hair, then ask them what is their target level and what is their target tone. And then you can decide what volume you're going to use and what it is that you're going to reach for. You're going to reach for just a level 6, or you're going to reach for a level 8, and then go on from there. I'd love to help you with that. That's my absolute favorite. But we do have to wrap this class up. If you have any more questions, you can always reach us on our social media platforms. And you can also go on chi.com and you can ask any further questions that you may have. Thank you guys so much. Again, my name is Cynthia Diersen, and I'm so excited to be a part of our CHI Academy online, and we will see you next time.